Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for part 1 of how to do mounted combat in Pathfinder. This video was requested from patrons from the DFC channel, and I was happy to help out Andrew in making this one. To be short, I will be doing a 3-part series. The first one we will be discussing the right checks. Second one we will go further into detail about special maneuvers you can make during combat. And the third one we will look at some cool feats that you can have to improve your character when it comes to riding. So we'll dive right into it because I don't want to take up too much of your time. And if you have the core rulebook from Pathfinder, you can find what we'll be discussing on page 103. If not, there's a link in the description because, as many of you know, Pathfinder has put all their work for free of access on the internet. And here we go. You should see it now. The most important part of mounted combat is all to find in the right check. It's a skill you have in Pathfinder, and if you're planning on doing any kind of mounted combat, you really should have at least 1 to 4 skill points in it. Otherwise, it'll be difficult. As you can see, the right check is pretty. Of the right skill, excuse me, is pretty easy. It's you are skilled at riding mount, usually a horse, but possibly something more exotic like a griffin and Pegasus. If you attempt to ride a creature that is ill-suited as a mount, you take a -5 penalty to your right checks. What they mean with ill-suited for mount is basically anything that is not war-trained is ill-suited to be mounted. That's wild horse you find in the forest. If it isn't war-trained, it's just ill-suited to be mounted. A tip for the GMs on the -5 penalty, I found it that it's a lot easier to not have the players think of this, but just as you see, you have a list of skill checks and DCs for things. Just have a second one in your notes where the DCs are 5 higher. For example, guide with knees would be a DC of 5. When going on a war-trained mount, well, if you have a mount that is not trained for war, the DC would be 10. Makes it a lot easier. As you can see, there's a lot of things you can do on a mount. And important to remember is if you're going to ride a mount, getting in the saddle, riding, dismounting, really shouldn't be that much of an issue if you're in a controlled situation. So don't go rolling 10,000 dice to see how often you fall off your horse during a long trek. That's just not necessary. The game thinks that you're proficient with it as you go along. But in combat, in dire situations, there are some checks you need to do, and you can find these on page 104 of the core rulebook. Pretty simple things. For example, guide with knees. Basically, sometimes you need both hands in combat. If you're wielding a huge sword, or you're trying to shoot arrows or casting during combat, you can make a simple right check to start off your turn. If you fail, you can only use one hand. So doesn't say that you automatically fail or fall if you fail this check, but you're limited in what you can do. The DC is 5 on a war-trained mount, 10 on a one that is not being trained. So that means that if your players have at least 4 ranks in ride, you can forgo of making them roll because they'll never fail the roll, having 4 points of ride plus the minimum of 1 on the die. You should be okay. Same thing with stay in the saddle. You can react instantly to try to avoid falling when your mount rears or bolts unexpectedly, or when you take damage. This usage does not take an action, really important. So something happens to your horse where you think you might fall, again, roll your dice, except if you have at least 4 skill points in ride to see if you can stay in the saddle. Then you have fight with a combat trained mount. So that's only for combat trained mounts. Obviously, it's if you direct your war trained mount to attack in battle, you can still make your own attack or attack normally. So it's basically your mount should not or should never attack by itself. But when you do this, when you want the extra trample or the bite or on whatever is appropriate for your mount, you roll your check for war trained mount is so the DC is 10, so that's not all that difficult. If it's not trained, it's 15. That means that you'll likely miss a couple of times at making them attack the enemy. There are such things as cover. You can react instantly to drop down or hang alongside your mount using it as a cover. It's pretty cool to do. You've all seen it in the movies. The horse gallops into combat and the guy just hangs on the other side. It's cool if you don't fail, because it's still with a war train mount. It's a DC of 15, so high chance of failure. And if you're role playing well and your GM is realistic, well, you might not get hit. Your mount will. So be careful about that. Falling off your horse is not the end of the world, as you can also do soft fall. Soft fall also has a DC of 15 for a war trained animal. It says that you negate damage when you fall off a mount. Should you fail it, you do take the 1d6 points of damage and are prone, but this usage does not take an action. Again, a free action is always a good one to use when you're in trouble. Same thing for leap. Leap does not take an action, but when you charge the battlement with your horse and you have to leap over an obstacle, you can do so. Right check again, 15, 20 if your mount is not trained, because obviously a horse will not willingly jump over a dangerous wall to get you where you want to if it doesn't have to. Spur mounts is you can increase the speed of the horse, but, and that's important to note, should you do this and basically haste your mount, it deals 1d3 points of damage to the creature. So when you're pushing your mount to greater speeds to get you where you want, do take in account that if you do that for too long, it might just die under you. Controlling mount in battle, even with a war-trained animal, is pretty difficult. And I'll write you the text because the DC is 20, so 25 for an animal that's not supposed to be in battle. As a move action, because this does take one of your actions, you can attempt to control a light horse, pony, heavy horse, or mount not trained for combat riding while in battle. If you fail the ride check, you can do nothing else in that round. You do not need to roll for horse or ponies trained in combat. Oh, okay, so my mistake. This is only for untrained animals, but if you find yourself with a mount in combat that is not war trained, you have to succeed in a DC 20 check to see if you can do anything at all. And if you fail the check, you basically lost your turn as you're trying to hold on for dear life. And another important aspect of combat is mounting and dismounting an animal. You can attempt to mount or dismount mount to up to one size category larger than yourself as a free action. provided that you still have a move action available that round. If you fail the right check, mounting or dismounting is a move action. You can't use fast mount or dismount on a mount more than one size category larger than yourself. That's a pretty logical thing. It's as if you were trying to hop on a mammoth as a smooth action. That's not possible. You'll have to climb it like a badass. But I know that this rule has has caused some confusion with people, and that's because the wording is poor on the part of Mbaizo. The thing is, if you're on a mount, it uses up your move action. So it's not as if the animal has a move action and you have a move action and then you're on a regular action. Your move action is basically the animal's move action. So if you want to use fast dismount in combat without the appropriate feats, you have to fast dismount at the start of your turn before you have moved, which cinematically is often a bummer because you want to rush in, slide off the horse and start hacking. Well, that's not possible. You'll have to charge in, wait until your next turn, and then fast dismount. Otherwise, you'll burn your move action on it. There's a couple of special actions, but nothing that we haven't touched on, and some special rulings. For example, if you're riding bareback, you take a -5 penalty on ride checks because, let's be honest, a saddle is a handy thing. If you have animal affinity as a feat, but we'll get back to that, you'll get bonus ride checks. Military saddles give you a +2 circumstance bonus on ride checks when it's related to staying in the saddle. And of course, many other prerequisites for cool feats. But we'll touch on that on the later part. This is the first part of the series. If you have questions about all this, do let us know. We'll be happy to answer them. Next video will be about charging into combat and casting in combat and all those sorts of things where the rules sometimes get muddled a little. If you like this video, do give us a like, a subscribe, and share it on social media with people that you know are interested about this kind of things. And if there's anything I've missed or should do better, let us know. We'll try to work that in. And this was Yannick for DFC, and I'm signing off. Happy gaming all.